Just when we thought we were going to have a state of the franchise where we were just talking about draft moves, Jason just spoke to Mel Kyper Jr. about his recent mock, talk about some prospects, things like that. Right before we get on, Brandon Aiyuk has officially unfollowed the San Francisco 49ers from Instagram. Sound the alarm. What does it all mean? Jason and I are going to talk about it right after this, but you already know what to do. Drop your spicy sourdoughs in the chat. Smash the like button on both channels. Let's get into the next chapter of the Brandon Aiyuk saga right now. That's Jason Aponte. I'm Brad Graham. We're going to get into it all right now. All right, Jason, hit with a little bit of a surprise. So we are going to get some up close and personal live reactions to Brandon Aiyuk unfollowing the San Francisco 49ers. I'm just going to toss it to you and ask Jason, react. I think you're muted.
We all knew this was coming. Rinse and repeat. This is the new way that not just 49ers players, but anybody who necessarily is looking for a contract extension of some sort. I guess I don't really have a reaction to it because it doesn't matter. It absolutely doesn't matter. This deal was never going to get done in April. This deal won't be done in May. This deal won't be done in June. It'll be much closer to training camp once Eric Armstead's money comes out 6-2. They add more money. They'll figure it out. Obviously, they'll figure out what they can do in the draft and who they need to pay. All of that stuff is absolutely true. I'm not moved by it. But what I'm moved by is, who are these people that are monitoring the players' Instagrams and finding that they who was sitting there today on Friday? And where I'm at, it's like 70 degrees almost. It's beautiful over here. Who's sitting there on their phone constantly refreshing Brandon Aiyuk's Instagram, looking to see if he's following the 49ers? Did he ever follow the 49ers? I also have a different take. Like, I've had, 9-to-5s before. I never followed any of my jobs. I never followed any of my employers. I never even followed people that I worked with. My other employees, I never even followed them. Job, who cares? But I want to know who these people are that are sitting there constantly refreshing Brandon Aiyuk's Instagram, waiting to see if he unfollowed them, and then being the person that gets all the engagement. And then I'm just shocked, 49er fans. You've seen the DC dip and twirl that this is, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, like the siren. He's a... Come on, man. It does not matter. This is the new way that players conduct themselves in contract negotiations. Their agencies are pushing them to do it. The people around them are pushing them to do it because it causes this stir. But I will say this. Something always happens usually right before Brad and I go live for some reason. It's always something.
That's the first thing I thought of. I was like, man, always something goes down.
It's always something. So this really just feels like something I was very expected. I really don't have too big of a reaction. It's fine.
It's funny. First of all, the guy that I saw who posted it first, Clayton Holloway, actually met him at the combine this year. He is Ian Rappaport's right-hand man when it comes to being a producer. So he actually saw that I took a picture in the stands at the combine, and he walked down from Ian Rappaport's media booth, where they have Ian set up at the combine in Lucas Oil. And he just came over and said, what's up, chopped it up with us a little bit. So it's funny. I actually know the guy who posted that. And I do know that he is pretty embedded in the NFL Network and stuff like that. But to the other point of like, are we surprised by this? What are our thoughts on this? I'm not surprised at all. I just did a live last night where I was like, you know what? I don't have the greatest vibes about this situation. Um, I think you just look again at all the motion on social media that's been happening. And again, you just use your brain, right? Like Brandon Aiyuk is deserving of a payday. However, the San Francisco 49ers have this awesome tool to their advantage, which is the fifth-year option. That allows them to have team control of a player heading into year 5. And for Brandon's sake, it's $14.1 million. Well, when you stack that against two guys who are about to get paid, and CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson, that's arguably one of the best bargains in football outside of Brock Purdy's contract right now. Like that would, if BA, which I don't think he will, but if he does somehow play next year at 14.1, while CD, like I think of that meme, Jason, where it's Squidward like looking out of the dark room and there's Patrick and SpongeBob like running around like, woo, that's CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson with their new contracts, while Brandon Aiyuk's just sitting up looking out the window like, all right, well, they're going to force me to play on my fifth-year option. Well, these guys are going to go get $35 to $30 million. And I think that's where the issue lies. I think that's why this is happening. We saw that when John Lynch made the reference of we're okay with Brandon Aiyuk playing on the fifth-year option. That's the bullshit walk thing that came out, right? So to your point, I don't think any of us are really surprised by this. I said it, I think, a week ago that the expectation still remains. There's an invisible deadline at the NFL draft, and it's at the end of the first round. If the 49ers get through the first round and Brandon Aiyuk's still on the roster, then it is expected he will be on the roster moving forward. And like you said, that's when the deals get cut for the 49ers.
I'll
June.
do you one. I'll do you one better, Brad. I think pick 20, where the Steelers are, that's your cutoff point. That's your cutoff point, right? Like the Steelers are the ones who are either looking to replace Deontay Johnson in the draft or possibly with Aiyuk. If it gets to pick 20 and nothing happens, done. Put it out of your mind. Forget waiting for the entire first round. Everybody else after 20 is fine. They've got their guys, and if not, they're fully prepared to draft somebody. Doesn't mean anything. So again, it's 20. 20 is the pick. Once you get to 20 and that's it, it's done. And that is an invisible deadline because, stop me if you've heard this before, it was literally the same thing that was happening with Deebo Samuel, which is why nobody should be surprised and which is why everybody should understand how this is going to go. And when you look at the fact that Deebo Samuel ended up getting paid, why wouldn't someone duplicate that sort of tactic, those sort of measures to get the deal done? And again, this wasn't going to get done here in April. It wasn't going to get done in May. It wasn't going to get done in June. It's going to get done just like it was for Nick Bosa, just like it was for Deebo Samuel close to the training camp, Brad. But pick 20 is where it's at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, too, it is important to look back and think that Deebo Samuel actually could have gotten traded from everything that we've heard. It's just the 49ers didn't receive a rich enough deal in order to get it done. I believe it was reported that the Jets offered pick 10, which turned into Garrett Wilson, but they wanted Deebo, and I believe it was like pick 61 in return. And the 49ers said, no, like we're not giving you Deebo and a second round pick for a top 10 pick. Like that's not going to fly. And as we've seen, Jason, with the San Francisco 49ers, i.e. Jimmy Garoppolo, they will hold on to a player, even if it means putting him on the side field at training camp where he can't play with the other kids at recess until they either come to agreement on a contract or find a trade partner that fits what they're looking for. They aren't going to. I think the biggest thing that we've learned throughout these processes is the 49ers don't acquiesce. Does that make sense? Like, they don't bend the knee if it doesn't make sense for them. So for Brandon Aiyuk to be traded, it would have to make sense from a draft capital standpoint. And that's where it either starts or stops, in my opinion. If the 49ers get an offer for BA that they're like, oh, that's not bad. That's not bad. Like, that's good value. That meets the criteria of what it would take, then I think it would be considered. But that's where I think that's where this really lies, is like BA is going to try to do what he's going to do to utilize his leverage to the best of his ability, because he's stuck with this 5th-year option looming over his head. And he is going to be underpaid, if he plays on that 5th-year option. So it's going to be interesting. I'm not sitting here saying, like, I believe that the most likely outcome is he makes it through and the 49ers get him paid. But I'm also of the belief that, like, I'm not just going to chalk it up and be like, oh, this is nothing. This is par for the course. I mean, it is on one hand, but I think on the other hand, it's like anything can happen in the NFL. And even though we saw Deebo Samuel not get traded, that doesn't mean another team doesn't find Brandon Aiyuk more valuable. And let's say, like your point, the Steelers are sitting there at 20 and Brian Thomas is gone. Mitchell is gone. Of course, the big three are already out of there. Then they might be like, well, we might have to pay to go up and get a wide receiver like Brandon Aiyuk. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. To me, I look at it as it more as things are just heating up a little bit. I think that there is a disconnect, and I think that we just got to wait and see. And then if we get through the draft, we know what the outcome is. But hold on. Hey, I'm just looking at it like we got about 2 weeks to figure out what is going to happen, because, based on things that I've heard behind the scenes, we're kind of aligned on what's going to happen. So we'll see how it plays out when it's all said and done. But yeah, I think it's up to you how you want to perceive it and how you want to kind of contextualize it. I think at the end of the day.
Yeah, and the difference between the Deebo and Brandon Aiyuk stuff is the 49ers already have a first. So they're not in any sort of bind to get into the first, right? Or anything like that. And if you look at the way team needs, and obviously mock drafts are, what they are for whatever they are. Like I did a bunch of them last night. I had I had Jaden Daniels fall to me at 31, and I'm just like, this is completely off, right? Like, so these mocks are insane.
I did a
Yeah.
mock draft
Yeah.
too, and I was like, why is Jaden Daniels
Why
here
is
at 30?
Jaden Daniels here at 31? So these mocks are crazy, right? Like these mocks are insane. But what I think is the 49ers are in the first round. With Deebo, you could think that they might be a little bit more inclined to move into the first round, right? Like that's the only other way that I could think of it. But again, this is all par for the course. I'm not gonna budge on what I said right before training camp. This thing gets done. If not, he may hold out a little bit during training camp, but this gets done. The 49ers are not going to get a higher pick that people are saying, like, the Jaguars or something like that, or something that's in the teens. Highly unlikely. So, again, par for the course, not really too worried about it, but it does give us something else to talk about, because what I've noticed is everybody likes draft content, but everybody doesn't like it that much, because we're struggling out here. We're struggling out here. We could do a whole mock draft episode. We could talk about all the prospects that people are just like, they want to know about who the 49ers have drafted. They don't want to know about draft prospects. I think that's the best way I'm seeing it. So, hey, at least gave us something else to talk about.
Yeah, no, it definitely gave us something to talk about. And like both of us talked about, I think we were both kind of anticipating this. I think we were kind of, it's funny kind of seeing some of the talking around the deep or around this situation. It's like, because Jason, like we are in somewhat of a transition period in regards to media. Like I've obviously been in the weeds in the social media game for a long, long, long time. And I credit the whole thing flipping on its head when George Kittle tweeted at Antonio Brown. I think it was on like New Year's Eve, and it came out that it was a dare from Jimmy Garoppolo. But we saw that spin into a 6-month cycle of Antonio Brown social media activity being the number one story on basically every top network. And that was really, to me, when I noticed the transition of when social media gained that power where it was beginning to run the story. So we saw it first with Deebo Samuel. And when Deebo Samuel did it, it was like still somewhat relatively new. And now it's like you're seeing a lot of how people are reacting to this. And it's just like, oh, it's Deebo Samuel all over again. And in some capacity, yeah, it's the same. We saw Kyler Murray do it. Remember when Kyler scrubbed his Instagram before he got into contract negotiations? So it's not like it's new, but I also want to present it as each situation is individually different. I don't think just because Debo's done it before means that this is identical. I think there are different situations at hand. I think when you look at the 49ers roster construction, where they are financially in regards to paying people, I think that changes the conversation a little bit. Whereas like Deebo was coming off year 3, BA's coming off year 4, heading into year 5. You got to pay, we already heard from Jed saying that, Brock is going to get potentially a big time contract. So there's things that you have to kind of keep in mind as well. So I my hope is that it gets done. But I'm also not going to be blindsided if something happens as well.
Well, what we forgot about the Kyler Murray situation was all that stuff got deleted because he was grounded for playing too much Call of Duty. His parents took his phone away and they wiped away a bunch of his stuff on his Instagram. Ha ha ha. So, um, so yeah, look, I think it's important to remember two things. Brandon Aiyuk was drafted in the first round. You get a 5th-year option. Deebo Samuel was not. He was coming off his 3rd year, and he wasn't going to play his 4th and final year with
Yeah.
no sort of extension. So there's one person who, if they hold out, it looks crazy because it's year 4. But someone who is really under contract because year 5, you've already been picked up and you're already under a 5th-year option. So that's the little part. But again, this is the norm for everybody, right? I guess a lot of people are I don't know if a lot of people are nervous, but a lot of people can point to AJ Brown doing it and then it turning into him ended up being traded. But I think honestly, it's nothing really that we didn't expect. I think at the end of the day, and we found a way to talk about it for 18 minutes. So thank you, Brandon Ayuk. And oh look, we got a super chat. Here we go.
Junior says, my favorite duo. What up, guys? Kind of off subject, but I was wondering if you guys think the 49ers have a shot at Byron Murphy. Much love. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. His stock's rising pretty fast. It looks like he's getting closer and closer to being in a position where if the 49ers want him, they're gonna have to trade up for him. And that's a great question. I think what we should do, Junior, is stick around for a little bit after we get to this Mel Kiper quote and we talk about what the 49ers have done and their possible draft strategy. I think this is something to come back to kind of segue back to it because the 49ers are in a position where they don't need to draft for need. They can draft best player available and they can be flexible when it comes to how the board falls in terms of a trade up. And I think Byron Murphy is somebody who would have to be traded up for if the 49ers want to get him.
Yeah, I did a live mock, I think earlier this week, and we just talked about the simulators and how crazy they are and
Yeah.
how the most random guys will be available. Murphy was there at 31, and I had to take him
Of
because
course.
if you have a guy who's projected to go, I think probably between 15 and 25, and he's there at 31, and defensive tackle is definitely a hole on the 49ers roster, in my opinion, short and long term, then absolutely you would take Byron Murphy. And he's the perfect prototypical squatty bodied 6 foot 300 zero tech menace that I love. People might be afraid of the size, but I think Aaron Donald did a really good job of kind of eradicating the stigma of shorter, squatty body defensive tackles and their impact to the game. So if the 49ers could get him at 31, that would be a W. I think you feel he would instantly start. I think he would start day one as a rookie. And I think as we've talked about with like how the 49ers are going to address, and this might be a perfect segue into your conversation with Mel Kyper about his mock draft, is you want to get a guy who's going to play at 31. You know, like that's kind of the whole point of getting that first round draft pick, having the ability to get someone in the first round and having the window right now to go make another shot at the Super Bowl. So I think you got to go and do what you got to do. So what do you think? I guess, do you want to kind of set up your conversation with Mel and how that all went about?
Yeah, so Mel Kiper put out a 2-round mock draft where he chose Rosengarten from Washington and he and Phillips, right? The corner. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of 49er fans are on board with a offensive tackle, offensive lineman, right? Like I think the only way to make 49er fans very, very happy is to draft all 11 picks linemen, and that'll fix everything. Because lineman's the only need, on his team, Brad. Like you just draft every single lineman that you can, and one of these guys is gonna pan out. But it was interesting to see him talk about Roger Rosengarten because he pointed to his 1,158 pass blocking snaps with no sacks, but then he talked about his familiarity with Ed McCaffrey. And then we find out that he's working with Joe Staley. So I had a chance to talk with him. And the question wasn't really what's the thought process with Rosengarten is, are you just connecting what you're hearing to what you think is going to happen instead of it being fit? And this is what Kuiper said. So Kuiper actually gave like a good answer about metrics and how sometimes metrics aren't there and how he thinks it's good. But this kind of feels like he's saying Rosengarten because that's what he's hearing, less than what he believes the pick should be. Right? Like that's what I got from what he was saying, Brad. And if you want to play the clip so you can hear the full quote, I know people are, gonna have a tough time like, probably reading that. You absolutely can, but I think it's better to hear it from here.
Can you hear it?
I can't.
You can't hear this?
No.
All right, let me try it a different way. Can you hear this? Nope.
Mm-mm.
I think the only
Try and
way
play it from the tweet.
I think the only way it might be able to be heard is if I share it, if I have the local video file. That's one of the things that I've noticed that's kind of annoying about StreamYard is like, oh, I'll try from the tweet, but it might not.
I got you. I can whatchamacallit, I can text it to you if that makes it easier.
Do you have the actual file? Because then you might be able to pull it up.
I do. It
This.
is.
Do you hear?
Let me see.
Do you hear anything?
Play it. I can't hear anything. Here, I got you. Shh, shh, shh. All right, it's loading right now. All right, let me see. It's there. You got it?
I'm pulling it up right now.
Facts. But is your selection a little bit of reading the tea leaves between the connection to Ed McCaffrey and also the fact that Joe Staley's been working with him as well instead of it just being a natural fit?
You added to what I thought. That's an additional couple points, but I just like the kid, like the way he played. And it's a kind of an area where you said, okay, they could look to upgrade that spot. Rosengarten made sense to me at 6'5.5", 308 pounds. And you look at that 4.92 and the 30 vertical. But the bottom line is, how does he play? Offensive line numbers don't mean a whole heck of a lot. But I remember Jason Fabini ran like a 5'5" and had a heck of a career in the NFL. So I'm not going to get enamored with some player just because of that. But it showed you what type of athlete he is, in addition to being a blindside protector of Michael Penix Jr. That doesn't automatically move. I mean, Booger McFarland talked about that today in our meeting. It doesn't automatically mean you can move the left tackle. They're totally different skill sets and different ways of doing it. And some can adapt, some can't. Some it's seamless, some it isn't. But Roger Rosengarten, I think, to me, has got it like TJ Tampa. I think those would be your two guys that I don't think anybody really discusses as high as I have them, would be those two players. I don't see anybody that I've talked. People always bring it up to me. Nobody has Rosengarten anywhere near where you have him. So I'm just trusting what I hear from other people. Maybe they don't. I don't know exactly where he'll go. I think he could go late first, early second, but he's a solid player. People are going to critique him for that last game, just like they critique J.C. Latham for that hiccup at the end of the game, or whoever at the final time you saw them. But it doesn't really tell the story of the type of player that Rosengarten was over the last 2 years.
Thanks, Mel. So, again,
he said it right there at the end.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I just, the way I looked at it when he was giving that answer was he's putting together the McCaffrey thing, the Staley thing, and he's probably hearing some things about the fact that the 49ers do like him. But at 31, and that's the part that's the part where we should talk about strategy and everything else, like, right there, and how the board, you have to play the board and the board has to come to you.
See, what I don't love about that is Mel's been doing this for how long, Jason? Like 30
man.
years?
I mean, he got called out, like in the 90s, man? He's been doing this for at least 30-some years.
Todd. He's been doing it forever, and he's supposed to be a scout. Like, that's the...
right. So that's why I asked about fit. He's talking about what he's heard.
Exactly. Like, that to me is a fool's errand in considering yourself an evaluator. To me, you're not an evaluator. You're using someone else's evaluation and making it your own. And that's how you, I would say, fail more often than not. Like, that was one thing that I learned really freaking early on in this process of trying to evaluate individual football players, is I remember this one guy that I really trusted. He was high on this one player, and I echoed his sentiments, right, without really doing the homework. But I trusted him enough to be like, oh, this guy says it, I agree, and he was terrible, the player. And I was like, never again am I ever doing that. And so that's why, like, when I talk about evaluation, I'm always like, just do the work yourself. Don't, like, you can cross-reference. I think it's fair to cross-reference your evaluations to others to kind of see how you align. But there have been plenty of times where I've cross-referenced a player that I'm high on to a guy that I would consider an expert on a specific position and completely disagree with him, and stay true to my evaluation, and then ultimately being right. So and the thing is too, is I can actually speak on Roger Rosengarten because I've watched him a ton, because I've watched Troy Fautanu a ton. Troy Fautanu is obviously like my biggest draft crush right now in this class. And when you watch Roger Rosengarten, this is the way that I look at him. He tests phenomenally well. You look at his testing numbers. He, like, even at the combine, I was like, damn, this dude's moving. Like, he really moves really well. His size would also be an indication of, like, all right, height, weight, speed. Jason, remember that conversation that we had where we were talking about how there's a segment of draft Twitter who will knock a prospect if he doesn't fit the height, weight, draft, or height, weight, speed prototypes that they're looking for, but they will prop up the guys like Amarius Mims because he's huge, but no literal basis in how he plays other than the fact that, oh, he's 6'8", 340. It moves really well. He must be a good football player, right? Look, you see his arm length, Jason. It's phenomenal. This translates to phenomenal NFL player. But that's how you miss on prospects. And so when I look at Roger Rosengarten from like a testing measurable standpoint, like you look at his numbers, it's freaking through the roof. You're like, holy crap. Like this guy like tests really, really well. But when you turn on the tape, he's highly inconsistent. And that's just where like you have to do your evaluation. And it's like when you ask someone about their evaluation and they give you zero information about anything they've seen on tape, throw up the red flag, man. That's throw that eval out the window. That ain't worth a lick. And that's not a shot at Roger either.
No.
Like I think Roger's right around second, third round. I think that's where
No.
I think his traits will get him a little bit higher, but he's got work to do.
It was very, very surface level based on the amount of pass blocking attempts and the 0 sacks and what you said before we got on. How much of that has to do with the fact that Michael Penix gets the ball out very fast as well too? I mean, I think that's something that we also have to talk about when it comes to that offensive line and quarterback player put together. But it was never, hey, good base, hey, good hands. He's strong at the point of attack. It was none of that. It was he is not allowed a sack, and he knows Ed McCaffrey. And then we find out that Joe Staley was there. So it never really felt like an evaluation in any way. Like it didn't feel like an evaluation from Mel. It felt like him hearing something and then throwing it out there because the 49ers do have a needed offensive line. And he's heard this. And then he has that unblemished sack record, right? With all his pass blocking snaps. And then he can just throw in the Ed McCaffrey thing. I think a lot of it was just basically what he's hearing. And you can find a way to get Rosengarten without using the 31st pick. Like you absolutely can. Like it does not require the 31st pick. I know that John Lynch said we like to draft good football players and we don't care where they, their perceived value of the players all over the place as opposed to us. And I think I'm finding that out now. Being a little bit involved with the draft and doing mocks. I get that, but it still doesn't require 31. I don't think anyone is running to the podium in the first round or even the top of the second to get Roger Rosengarten. And that's not a knock at him not being a good player or him not being a successful NFL player. It's just perceived value right now. You can see that it's not going to be necessary. It's not going to be necessary. One thing I want to say is I hope you're proud of me. I just pulled a Brad Graham. I just put out a reel on Instagram and I cut it up and it has a video and everything, and I was able to do it in the short moments while you were speaking and to get it done pretty quickly.
Oh, you made a post on live.
Oh yeah. Learn from the best. I learned from the best.
Squad, baby.
But honestly,
that's multitasking at its finest. We love
it. And obviously you see I'm babysitting here as well too.
Yeah, so I think, multitasking.
Well, not babysitting, it's my daughter. But the thing is this, it's like again, Rosengarten being picked at 31 is too rich. And it doesn't mean that he's not going to be a good tackle, and it doesn't mean that he's a bad prospect. But at 31, there is a way for you to pick someone at 31 who is a very good player, because there's going to be a very good football player that's going to fall down to you because of the way the draft goes. And then if you really, really, really want Rosengarten, you can move up in the second round if you feel like someone is gonna jump up. You don't have to do that at 31. That doesn't mean it's a bad pick, but at 31, I don't like it.
Yeah, no, that's an awful pick at 31. I think it's really as simple as this. If Rosengarten's tape, if his tape matched his testing, he would be a first round draft pick, but it doesn't. So that's again where draft Twitter seemingly just struggles every year with, instead of just watching the tape, and I get it, like we've talked about it so many times, is that evaluating offensive line is hard. It's a challenge. The only reason I'm any good at it is because I played offensive line. And if I didn't play offensive line, I'd probably be terrible at it. It's really hard. It's challenging. And so when someone's explaining their pick and they're not giving any type of anything, that's a red flag. And if when you start to hear measurable references, testing references, statistical references, and not really anything that anyone does good on film, you're like, oh, well, we'll see how that goes. But a good question though. Good. I thought that was a great way to attack the question,
right,
because
like,
we found the answer. We
Right.
found the answer.
Because I could have just said, hey, what are your thoughts on Rosengard? And he would have been like, yeah, you know, he does speak very fast. And honestly, shout out to Mel Kyper, man. That was really cool, like, to be able to do something like that. So it's not disrespectful or anything like that. But
No,
I felt like
we're just
asking
being
the runner,
objective.
ask the run of the mill question about his thoughts on Rosengard, and weren't going to give us anything that he didn't write down or anything like that. But for me, I was just trying to put the tea leaves together because we're the smoke chasers. Ed McCaffrey was his coach. Joe Staley is training with him. You know, starting to put the pieces together. You're hearing something. It doesn't necessarily mean, and because you're hearing something, and if that was the pick, it means that either Kyle or whoever is doing the O-line, I guess evaluations, that's his guy. Like, again, perceived value. If that's their guy, they don't care where. They don't care where. They don't care where he's gonna fall, right? Like, we're gonna draft our guy because that's all we care about. Everything else is letting people just yell in the background. Fans are gonna be upset at pick 31 regardless. Let's just make sure we put that.
I do.
Let's make sure we put that out there. There is no one player at pick 31 that every single fan is going to throw their hands up and say, that's the pick. We nailed it. Now we are the world, and let's hold hands. So let's get that out of the way. Whether it's offensive line, whether it's defensive line, whether it's cornerback, whether it's wide receiver, no one pick is going to be loved. That's it. It's just so someone's going to be disappointed. Many people are going to be disappointed. I mean, we're 49ers fans. How often are we disappointed?
Dude, hey, you got to make a TikTok or like a real, like, hey, we're 49er fans.
Dude, I've been thinking about that. We're 49ers fans. Of course, we're going to dox each other over a quarterback discussion on Twitter. We're 49er fans. Of course, I'm going to invite you to fight me at the next home game. We're 49ers fans. Of course, next year is our year in Quest for 6. Like, something like that.
Please do it. It would be so good. I think you would nail it too. I think you do a really good job at being able to really capture the online persona fan, in person, in real life fan.
We're 49ers fans. Of course, we're going to laugh at Dallas and Philly for losing, and then we're going to lose the next round.
Oh my gosh. We're 49ers fans. Of course, our high.
No, it's fine. Look, we're just laughing through the pain, guys. That's it. Yeah. This is high level content right here. This is like the highest level content right here.
100%. And Brian was right on point with the way this one fits in. Says, did y'all see Purdy going on a road trip show with McKivitz? Be prepared to be disappointed this draft, Niners fans.
All right. We are 49ers fans. Of course, Rich Madrid told me to watch the tape.
We're 49ers fans. Of course, Rich Madrid has yelled at us.
Right. Of course, he's called us a bozo.
Yes.
Look, Cole McKivitz is going to be on this roster regardless, right? And I'm going to restate my opinion with this is the 49ers are not telling you that we're running it all the way back with this offensive line straight up and we're not going to fix anything. The 49ers are giving themselves a safety net of we've won a ton of games with this 49ers team, with this 49ers line. And if push comes to shove, it's not plan A, but if it ends up being plan B, plan C, plan D, and we draft linemen that aren't ready, then we still have someone who's played a lot of snaps. And dare I say, Brad, I know this is hard for people to understand sometimes about players, but maybe he might get a little bit better. Like, he might just get better, like one full year under his belt. But I don't think the 49ers are telling you they're running this line back. What they're doing is they're putting themselves in a position where we can take a lineman, right? We can take a lineman. We'll bring him to camp. If he wants to compete, he can compete. If he doesn't win, then we still have McKivitz. But if he kicks everyone's ass, McKivitz is now on the bench. And he can be a guard. He can be a left tackle in a pinch. He can turn into that Brunskill role. So with this, McKivitz is definitely going to be on the team because he's extended. But I don't think at all they're telling you they're running this line back and they're not going to try to improve in the draft at all. I don't think so.
No, I think they'll draft offensive line. It's just where are they going to draft offensive line, and how do they perceive trying to actually do that? For me, trade up if you really want to improve your offensive line. If you're staying at 31, you have to go BPA. You got to. Even if you think you need offensive line and you got a defensive tackle, you got a cornerback. If you got Kool-Aid McKinstry sitting there, you go Kool-Aid over like a Jordan Morgan or a Kingsley Suamataia. I feel like you got to go best. You got to go BPA. Like you can't, and that's what having that offensive line offers them is they can go BPA and they can kick out offensive line needs to the future or to this, second, third, fourth round. And hey, you look at guys like Zach Tom, who the 49ers could have had, but he's turned out to be a very quality offensive lineman that was drafted in the fourth round. As guy was banging the table for them to get, they opted to go a different route. And hey, they're now looking for additional upgrades.
And this is a perfect segue to draft strategy. So if you want to pull back up, I believe it was Junior's super chat, because the 49ers.
This one?
Yep. Because the 49ers signed another cornerback, Rock Ya-Sin. And now there's this idea that now the 49ers are not in the market in the draft at all for a cornerback. I don't agree with that either. I don't agree with that either. I think when you're filling your roster now early on before the draft, you put yourself in a position where you're like, well, if the worst case scenario is Rock Ya-Sin, Gideon have to play on the outside, and you keep Lenore on the inside, and you still have Charvarius there, that's not the worst thing. But if the 49ers get an impact corner, those guys are not locks to make the team. You don't have to keep them on the 53. You don't have to keep them on the 53. They're not locks to make the 53. None of that means the 49ers are tipping their draft strategy hand. What it means is the 49ers now are flexible and can do whatever they want. Best player available. Trade up if they identify someone. They can wait on guys. None of those guys are the reason the 49ers won't draft a cornerback. Isaac Gideon had a really good season last year for the first time in his career as a New Orleans Saint on the outside. He had a very good season. Can't lie about that. Sounds like the 49ers are thinking that he might have found something, and they think that they can keep that going. Rock Ya-Sin didn't play much last season, but when he did, he played well. And I think he's got draft pedigree. And again, when you have a guy who was regarded in the draft, they usually get shot after shot. But neither of those guys are going to be the reason that the 49ers don't go with a cornerback. Like, I don't understand that thought process. It may make it less likely that they need to go ahead like early on, but I think if the right guy falls, like if Kool-Aid McKinstry's there, you think the 49ers are going to say, nah, man, we've got Isaac Gideon and Rock Ya-Sin. We're good. We're solid over here. Like, that's not going to be the reason. But what the 49ers are doing is keeping themselves flexible so they can play the board, best player available. And I think that's what is exciting about this draft is they can do whatever they want. And there's no right or wrong way to build a roster. It just depends on, are they going to really do best player available, or are they just going to do an entire draft of these are our guys and these are the guys we're going to draft regardless of where they are?
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. Iceman wanted to know, where's my super chat? It's right here. Says, don't know what hurts more, the Super Bowl loss or the last episode of X-Men 97.
Super Bowl loss.
It's always going to be
Look,
the Super Bowl loss.
if anybody knows anything about comic book characters, and I'm not going to give what happened away. Excellent episode. By the way, X-Men 97, absolute cinema. We're absolutely seated. You know, between that and Invincible finishing and having this to keep going with, it's great. But if we know anything about comic book characters never stay dead. So I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah, no, the Super Bowl by far and away. Not even close. Still get flashbacks. Cap says, Brandon paid Aiyuk, BPA, my draft approach. That's a good draft approach. But unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen before the draft. Any type of payment for Brandon Aiyuk is going to be long, drawn out, painful, sleepless nights potentially for all those involved, and most likely gets done in the wee hours before training camp. And of course, barring that Brandon Aiyuk is on the roster beyond the NFL draft. Apparently, the Steelers are hot and heavy for a wide receiver. Just
That
seeing
makes sense.
a report from 93.7 The Fan saying there are internal discussions about Bengals star receiver T. Higgins.
That's
who is
crazy to
on
trade him in the division.
a franchise tag, right? Not it's kind of similar to BA in a sense. It's a form of a tag. One's franchise, one's fifth year. But hey, teams are going to be out there looking for wide receivers. I don't think that the Steelers feel ultimately super comfortable with Pickens as their number one after they traded Deontay Johnson away. So we'll see. We'll see what the not the 49ers, the Steelers do. But again, you have to have someone who's willing to pay.
Yeah.
If BA is a part of those conversations, what are they willing to pay? And what will the 49ers take? I think that is a really, really big question of if anything goes down with BA, because I don't know who's offering what. The Patriots, would the Patriots be interested in BA services? Because I don't think an early second round pick will do it.
Well, let me ask you this too. Doesn't Brandon Aiyuk kind of have a say in where he wants to go, where he should go, anything like that when it comes to this, right?
I would say so.
Yeah. All right. So you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you rightfully want Brandon Aiyuk, right? If I'm Brandon Aiyuk, and the reason that I kind of want out is, one, because I want to get paid, and two, because I want to get the ball a lot. You think the best way to get your number one targets is to go to the Pittsburgh Steelers with Russell Wilson and or Justin Fields and Arthur Smith's offense?
No, I don't think that's the way to do it.
You think that's the way? You think going to an offense led by Russell Wilson at this stage of his career, Arthur Smith as the offensive coordinator, George Pickens isn't going anywhere and is going to want his. You think that's the way? That's the team that's going to make you a target hog, give you the ball. What? Russell Wilson's going to throw the ball 27 times this season, and they're all going to be the tight ends. Like that, this is Arthur, and none of them are going to be the good tight ends. It's not going to be Pat Fryermuth. They're going to throw the ball 27 times to Darnell Washington. Like, what do we know about Arthur Smith? Arthur Smith will look at his best player or one of his better players and say, nah, let's throw it to Jonnu Smith. Never mind Kyle Pitts. Bijan Robinson, no thank you. Go sit down. Tyler Algier. Drake London, no thank you. Matt Collins. Literally. What on earth would make Brandon Aiyuk believe that going to the Steelers would be where he's going to get targets? He would literally go there and get less targets because Arthur Smith thinks he's smart by saying, I know you think he's good, but I'm going to throw it to the other guy who isn't as good, and we're going to use that. Like, what?
That's so funny, dude. He had like 3 of the premier athletes at each individual position, and he's like, you know what? We're going to go with the guys who are either journeymen or what have you. Like that's a better idea, I think.
Hey, Kyle Pitts, you know, you're really fast and you're really big, but you know what, man? Let's throw the ball to Jonnu Smith 100 times. Like, let's get him involved. Bijan, you're incredible, man. Like, you really can break tackles. You can catch the ball. You're great with the ball in your hands. We're going to hand it off to Tyler Algier. Like, it's literally like right there in front of you. Like, what on earth makes, and then you throw in the quarterback situation. Why on earth would Brandon Aiyuk ever want to go there? And Mike Tomlin's not going to let that go crazy because he allowed Matt Canada to be crazy over there as well too. Now a lot of that has to do with their quarterback, but come on, man. Like, going
Is
to the
Canada
Steelers,
still there, or did they go
no,
somewhere
Arthur
else?
Smith.
Oh, Arthur Smith. Oh,
Yeah,
it's like a
Arthur
wash,
Smith.
basically.
Yeah, I mean, like, Najee Harris is going to take a back seat to Jalen Warren. Like book it. Like, book it. Pat Fryermuth, take a seat. Here comes Darnell Washington. Book it. So I don't understand why Brandon Aiyuk would think that Pittsburgh would be the place that he can go to get number one targets when Arthur Smith has no interest in not only doing what's right and getting your best players the ball, he hates fantasy football. Like literally tells you to his face. Bijan Robinson was injured. Cool. I'm not even gonna give you time to get him out. Or he was sick. I'm not even gonna give you time to get him out. Like, come on, man. He's the worst. He's the absolute worst. Nothing is gonna get better there in Pittsburgh. Nothing.
Yeah, no, I could see. So I think the interesting angle would be is if Jaden Daniels goes number 2 overall to Washington to Adam Peters, then you have Terry McLaurin, you have Jahan Dotson. They lost Curtis Samuel, right? So yeah, and Jahan feels like he could be maybe more effective out of the slot. And if you want to talk about fit, you want to talk about teaming up with your homie. I mean, but again, what are you getting? You're not getting. Well, does Washington have multiple first round picks?
I don't think so. If I'm not mistaken.
Who has multiple first round picks? Multiple top 10 picks. It's the Bears, right? The Bears have multiple.
The Bears
10.
because of the DJ Moore trade.
Right. But
and the Bears, I think they're locked in on Caleb and Udons.
Right. That would make more sense. You get 2 rookies coming at the same time.
Yeah.
You already got Keenan Allen as your veteran.
And DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Udons, and Udons. Those. Oh, dude, that's man.
Dude, that would be crazy,
man. That'd be fun.
And you could go offensive line, whoever falls out in the early second too, and get a guy there. So hey, Chicago Bears could turn it around pretty quickly here. But obviously we're more kind of talking about like, well, fits, where would BA potentially go, like where and who's willing to give up, and would the Colts give up pick 15 for him? You know, like would they give that up to team him up with Pittman and Downs? To have Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson. Like you just kind of go down the list of like potential fits. Who would be in the market for Brandon Aiyuk to even like have that as a conversation of potential trade targets? I'm not really.
And that's why you bring up the Steelers, is because the Steelers are absolutely ready to fill a spot with, Deontay Johnson. Like, that makes sense. But everywhere else, everyone else is either situated with their receiving group, or is in prime position to get another receiver, right? Like we were thinking about, obviously the New York Giants was somebody that was floated around before this all happened and everything as well. But the New York Giants are in a spot where they can get Malik Neighbors now, and he'll be cost controlled. And I love you, Brandon Aiyuk, but the difference between getting Malik Neighbors for the cheap for 4 years, I'll kick that can down the road for a while before I bring in Brandon Aiyuk and have to pay him right now, in my opinion, especially trying to rebuild.
Neighbors is 20 years old as well. I did not know that. That's crazy.
Yes.
I thought he was 22, 23. Nah, he's 20. That means you're likely paying him when he's turning 24.
Right.
Which is unbelievable. But
like
yeah, I mean,
a team can have a need, but if it comes down to it and I can draft a guy, even a cheaper option, he may not turn into Brandon Aiyuk, but I mean, for 4 years, I get to have a cost control guy that has like good draft pedigree as opposed to paying somebody right away, especially if the team isn't going anywhere. I just don't see that happening. I don't see it happening.
If we had to talk about teams in the first round who need a number one wide receiver, I would say the New England
Jags.
Patriots at 3. You're saying the Jags at where are they selected? 17. I would say the Tennessee Titans could use. They got a bunch of old fogies over there right now in DeAndre Hopkins and the guy that they just signed for $92 million. So I don't know if they'll be in the market.
Calvin Ridley, I doubt it. Yeah, and
Traylon Burks seems to be on his way out.
Right, makes sense.
Atlanta Falcons, they could use a compliment to Drake London with Kirk Cousins. That could be an option. We talked about the Chicago Bears, most likely not. Minnesota Vikings, I feel like they're trying to get a quarterback. So they're either going to get a quarterback and they can't pay Justin Jefferson and Brandon Aiyuk.
No, they can't. So they're out.
Denver Broncos, they traded Jerry Jeudy. Cortland Sutton's getting long in the tooth. They got guys out there like Marquette. They got Mims, but they could be a potential suitor. Just because I don't know how long Cortland Sutton's going to be vibing around there. New Orleans Saints, they got Olave, Shaheed.
Shaheed's pretty good.
But they could use another option as well. What's his name?
Yeah, but now we're getting into the spots in the draft.
We're at 14.
We're at 14.
Right,
okay,
yeah.
Keep going.
15 would be the Colts. We talked about their fit.
Yeah.
And then we have Seattle. We're not trading in division. You mentioned Jacksonville Jaguars at 17. Cincinnati Bengals, if they're not paying T. Higgins, they're not
going to do that to get Aiyuk. Nope.
Rams at 19, not going into division.
Nope.
Pittsburgh Steelers at 20.
That's your cutoff point. That is your cutoff point right there. If it doesn't happen by 20, it is not going to happen. I don't want any other picks after.
Could you see Miami Mike making a play at 21 to get BA over in South Beach to team up with Tyreek Hill? But
no.
Keep in mind, Tyreek's making 30.
Yeah.
BA's looking for 25 to 30. You have two very high priced wide
and they got Waddle.
They got Waddle. Good point.
Yeah. So I mean, I think 20. What is 21? We're at right now with Miami.
21 with Miami. Then it's Philly, Vikings, Cowboys, Packers. Tampa Bay. Nah.
It's over. Like
Arizona,
once 20
Bills at 28. Bills at 28.
No. Why would I move up 3 spots? Why? And the Bills are going to want 31. And the Bills are going to want 31.
You would have to say to the Bills, like, you're not getting 31. We're not giving you anything else. We have to get 28. And I would even say you have to get more than just 28.
I don't want it for 3 spots earlier. And what I was going to say is 21 seems like a perfect spot for the 49ers to trade up to if someone that they really like gets into a spot for them that they really like. 21. Because if it's a player that the Dolphins don't need and they're identifying, right? Like they can entice them there. But right after the Steelers, once it gets to 20, that's it. Nobody 21, 22, 20, nothing all the way down there because it's not worth it at that point. It is not worth it at that point at all. So to move up 3 spots and then to strengthen the Bills for what? Like why? Like I don't understand that. You get some back end picks, but I'm not doing that for 28. Only what is it? You have to be blown away. I'm not blown away by getting a pick 3 picks ahead of me. That's not getting blown away. Like 1 first rounder is not going to get it done.
Yeah, getting pick 28 for Brandon Aiyuk would be, I wouldn't call that a return on investment. I feel like you'd be taking a loss if you're running an economic game. If you're just if it was just BA for 28, I would say that would be an L for the 49ers.
Yeah, I don't feel good about that. Again, it would have to be blown away. Like we're talking about like 17 and up, or if somebody got froggy like early on. Like
for me it'd have to be 15 and up, and it's or it's a non-starter, and I'm also not adding anything on to that. Like, and I'm also like still in the mindset like I might need a little sweetener to like really make me feel convicted in accepting a trade, because as we've seen, the DeForest for 13. That wasn't a trade that, it didn't work out in the end. And I don't want to see that. And again, hey, you're a 49er fan. You have PTSD. Like, we have PTSD for a lot of things, and trying to trade a player of BA's caliber and thinking you can hit on a rookie, especially at a position that have had a really hard time finding initial success with the 49ers. That's also a challenge.
Yeah. And again, it'd have to be something crazy. It would have to be something crazy. So I know that I could get myself in the range of like getting like Neighbors or you done. Yeah. I love this.
I must not be paying attention to the chat because I have no idea what this means.
You don't get this reference?
No.
It's a Chappelle Show reference. Sometimes cucumbers taste better pickled, and the guy goes, "Huh?" He's like, "Huh?" He's like, "Huh?" He's like, "Huh?"
I love the Chappelle Show.
I love the deep cuts.
Remember that one.
I love the deep cuts. So good, Lorenzo. So good. But again, I would have to be in a position where I feel like I can get Malik Neighbors or Udons. Like that's the only way, right? Someone who's very cheap and I know for a fact is going to be a great player in this league. I think the top three wide receivers are slam dunks. I think Marvin Harrison's going to be great. I think Marvin Harrison's going to be great. I think Neighbors is going to be great, and I think Rome's going to be great. I think all three of them are going to be great, and I don't think that there's really much to think about with them. But if I'm not in a position to get them, then all these other guys that we feel good about and that possibly can be good in the league, it's not worth it. Like later on, at that point, take the known commodity. If I can get one of those home run guys and cost-controlled home run guys with a fifth-year option, bet. But these other guys that we feel good about that'll possibly be good, I'll take the established guy that's been here for a while.
What about Raiders at 13? Devontae Adams getting long in the tooth. Pierce is BA's former coach in college. Mm-hmm. I also think Pierce recruited BA. Mm-hmm. So there's a relationship there. Could that be a fit potentially? I would say from a value perspective, 13 would be a pretty solid value.
The only reason that I don't think so is I think that the Raiders are dead set on getting a quarterback one way or another at 13, whether that's moving up to make sure that they get Jaden Daniels, who Antonio Pierce likes, if they find a way to get that done, or just absolutely pushing the envelope and just saying we're taking Penix here at 13 because we want to make sure that we lock in a guy, which I personally wouldn't do. I just think they're locked in on a quarterback.
Yeah, I just don't see that the Raiders being able to move up from 13 to 2.
Oh, yeah. I don't think so. I don't think so either.
The 49ers 12-3 was a first-round pick swap plus 2 additional first rounds and a third, I believe.
So the way you get that conversation started is if Washington takes May at 2. That's the way you get it.
The Patriots are dead set on taking a quarterback too.
They are, but the Patriots have also let it be known, like, hey, if you want to jump out the window and give us 4 first rounders or this and that, like this way, we'll
because they're kind of more in a complete rebuild.
They're in an absolute complete rebuild, like
new coach,
everything.
GM,
so
all that.
I don't think they should. Like, if they have a chance to get a quarterback right now at 3, I think you definitely lock that in or whatever. And I don't think the Raiders are going to make it to 3 either. No. I just think they're going to force the issue by doing something very Raider-like with their pick and going too crazy on Penix because they're scared that somebody is going to let him. If somebody's going to get him before they can get him on the way back.
Let O'Connell cook, man. Go BPA. See what you get.
Oh, no, he's cooking hot dogs with Pop-Tarts. My God, no.
You think Penix going first round?
Someone's going to absolutely force it, I think. Someone's absolutely going to force it. Because nobody wants to be left with Bo Nix, like, being the only or Spencer Rattler. And Bo Nix is fine. And Bo Nix is fine.
I think people would rather miss on actually selecting the guy than miss on him being a hit. You know what I mean? I feel like that almost haunts them more. Like, at least they could be like, oh, we tried, and it didn't work out. But if you don't take him and you see the Brock Purdy situation play out, obviously extreme polar opposites from a couple rounds to the end of the draft. But I think there's like a bit of a FOMO that's created. Fear of
Right.
missing out,
Yeah,
like
that's it. You start to see that quarterback run. It's almost like in your fantasy drafts, right? You're like, oh, I'm gonna wait on running back, and you
I'm in
start to
one
see
right
running
now.
backs. You start to see running backs happening, and you're like, oh, and then you get all panicky, and you're just like, I need a starting running back. Then then
And
you
your
end up with
pool starts
right,
just dwindling and dwindling,
it's
dwindling.
it starts to get down to like you having Zach Moss in Cincinnati as your starter, and you're just like, no, I can't. Like I can't do that, and then you force a pick. Like I think they will start to look around and really really make like a panic decision because they don't want to be on the outside looking in. And not that Bo Nix won't be good, not that Spencer Rattler won't be good. I just don't want to be left with those two at the end and have to make that decision. That like I could definitely see them doing that.
That's absolutely wild timing. That right when you said Bo Nix, I'm in the middle of a dynasty draft. Bo Nix was selected at the same exact time you said Bo Nix. That was kind of wild, but means absolutely nothing to the show. You're muted.
That's the thing too is, talking about like dynasty superflex leagues, like is Caleb Williams the slam dunk number one pick? Like I don't know, man. I might if I
Well, I
need
can
it.
tell
Like,
you where he went in this draft.
did he go first?
So this is a startup draft. He
Startup
went,
superflex. Okay,
yeah, it's a startup. CJ Stroud went 1.
makes sense.
Patrick Mahomes went 2, Hurts
Okay,
3, Allen, Jackson, Burrow,
yep.
Caleb.
Okay, so all right. Again, so let's say you started that
Seventh
draft.
overall.
Let's say you started that draft out and you were like, I'm gonna wait on quarterback, right? And then you start to see those elite guys going. You're just gonna like put your finger over Kirk Cousins in Atlanta and just smash it in because you're just like, oh, I gotta get a starter, a guy who can like, and then like you look around at what you could have had, and you're just like, damn, you panicked a little bit, bro. Like so they're doing startup with rookies. They're not doing like you pick the kicker and then
So
like
this is the first time that we've thrown, like I've been a part where they throw rookies in. I actually like it because you can get value on later rookies because everyone's kind of scared. So you can actually like identify the play prospects you like. And so like Kirk Cousins, he went at 310. So Christian McCaffrey went right after that. And then you had like it's a tight end premium too. So you had Kincaid, TJ Hawkinson, DJ Moore, Justin Fields went in at 410. Or no, I'm mistaken. It was McCaffrey, Kincaid, Tyreek Hill, Kyron Williams, Devontae Smith after Kirk Cousins was selected. But there's all the quarterbacks were gone. Like there was like they were gone. Jaden Daniels had already went. Tua went. Jared Goff went at 3-8. So
like
there weren't very many quarterbacks left.
What's funny is if the Bills don't draft a guy, then Kincaid becomes they're like Kincaid's gonna have to turn into Kelsey for him, like in the way that Mahomes uses him, right? So I get the thought process, but if they draft like a Donnie Mitchell, that kind of throws a monkey wrench into your plans, right? Like, so that's what's funny about like those drafts and everything early on. I personally like it when you do the thing where if you put a kicker in, that means you get a pick. So the first kicker is the 1-1, the second kicker is the 1-2, and then you like you do it all the way around
because you know what you're drafting, you know what situation they're in,
and then and then you can just go get the vets, and then you can go, like if I want to double up and I look around and I'm like, damn, I don't have a quarterback, well, I can just go get Caleb Williams as a need, like 1-1. So
yeah, so like I took JJ McCarthy in the 5th round after. So my quarterbacks
future Viking.
My quarterbacks are Burrow, Purdy, and McCarthy. So that's what we're rocking with. Yep. So trying to go for Purdy, recreating his magical, because Purdy was great in fantasy last year. Like,
oh yeah, he killed it in my Scott Fishbowl league. I had him and Lamar and Jordan Love.
Purdy finished in regards to last year 6th in PPR and 6th in half PPR as well. So I mean, and I got him as the 12th quarterback off the board.
Right.
So it was again one of the situations where it was just quarterback run, and I was like, I'm gonna be a homer. I'm gonna take my guy Purdy and stack him with Burrow, and I wanted one rookie, and I got like Caleb went in the first round, Jaden went in the 3rd round. I got McCarthy in the 5th. I feel pretty confident about that because I think he's going to go a lot higher than people
He's a Viking.
anticipate. Yeah, he's going somewhere, and I think he's going to have a really good shot at starting year one. But that again, we'll see. We'll see where he goes. But we'll see what happens with the whole NFL draft in general.
Yeah, I'll be there, pal. I'm packing my bags and I'm going, so I'll be able to talk with pick 31, whatever.
Well, hopefully pick 31's there.
No, yeah, all the first. Oh, that's right, because only 15 have gone. Yeah, good call.
Darius Robinson looked like the only guy
outside of the top 15 that's not going to go.
Yeah, other than that, it seems like slim pickings.
That's not good. They'll figure it out.
They'll figure it out. I mean, that's a hard spot to be in. You don't want to be the Will Levis, right?
Right.
I think we figured that out. You don't want to be that guy that could go in the 20s that slides out of the first, and you're just sitting there in the green room, and then you have to make the decision: do I come back the next day? Do I go home? And all that crap. So
the thing is too is I remember the first draft I covered, which was in Vegas. Brees was there for the first round, and then he didn't get picked in the first round, but he was the first or second pick out of the second round, so he was actually available for the press conference as well too. So yeah, that was kind of interesting with that. We'll see. I bet we'll hear a little bit more about other guys being there. So hopefully some of the big boys will be there, in case they get picked, so I can ask them questions, but. Regardless, I'll still be there, boots on the ground, talking to people, figure out what's going on.
Absolutely. Detroit, you got to take a picture with that Detroit sign that they put up.
Nah, I gotta go grab a beer with Don Burr. Don Burr, if you're in here and I saw
he was in here earlier.
Yeah, I saw you earlier. Somebody let Don Burr know. Put the word out. I want to grab a beer with the legendary Don Burr. So let me know once I'm done with work and everything. Let's go. Don Burr, hit my line, man.
Don Burr, hit up Jason. And hey, we got something to talk about today. I'm not gonna lie. When that stuff came across, I'm like, oh look, we have something to talk about. Honestly, I feel like we're kind of slowly just getting desensitized by everything.
Yep.
And hey, you're a 49er fan, you're dead inside. That's just kind of the vibes right now. So we'll see how it all plays out. The whole Brandon Aiyuk thing, again. Invisible finish line is at the draft, and we'll see what ultimately happens. Until then, it's social media watch to see how this situation plays out, because the 49ers aren't going to say nothing about it. And other than that, we just got to wait and see. And that's where we're at. Any last words, comments, thoughts, concerns? Anything regarding the San Francisco 49ers?
No, we're good. Thanks guys for tuning in. It's been a wild time trying to do draft content. It's not hitting the way that we thought, even though they have a first rounder. So I'm glad you guys tuned in. It's always good to see you guys in here in the chat and all your support and everything. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll keep it going. We're almost there. I think the content goes crazy when the 49ers, when you find out who the 49ers have drafted.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people want to know. They don't want to know about all the draft prospects. They want to know about who the 49ers selected. So I think that's where it goes.
I feel like the average fan is still just in pain, and they're still just kind of like, oh, well, now we got to talk about BA. I don't want to ingest 49ers content.
Right.
And so I think when the draft happens, we'll be good to go. We'll have our players to talk about. Rookie OTAs and rookie mini camp and OTAs would be right around the corner. Then we break for the real dead period, and then, but hey, training camp. It means training camp's not too far away.
Yes, sir.
So shout out to everyone as always for tapping in. Make sure you like and subscribe to both channels. All that good stuff. I'm Brad. That's Jason. State of the franchise. We out. That's Jason Aponte. I'm Brad Graham. We're going to get into it all right now.